It was supposed to be an ordinary day in a quiet neighborhood. A young black boy was out enjoying the sunshine, just riding his bike near a park. But in an instant, everything changed. A white woman, claiming to feel unsafe, called the police on him. Her voice carried the weight of authority, but her accusations had no basis. She demanded action, expecting to see the boy punished for simply being there. What happened next left everyone stunned. When the boy's mother arrived, the woman's confidence seemed to fade. Little did she know, this wasn't just any mother. This was the governor, a powerful woman, unshaken, and ready to protect her child. The entire situation flipped in an instant, leaving the crowd in disbelief and the woman speechless. What sparked this encounter, and how did it all unfold? Stay tuned to hear every jaw-dropping moment of this incredible story. The boy, no older than 12, had done nothing but ride his bike along the sidewalk. He wasn't loud, he wasn't causing trouble, just a kid enjoying his afternoon. But the woman had already decided he didn't belong there. She kept her distance, but stared with a glare that seemed to pierce through the air. Then came her phone call to the police, her voice sharp and filled with false urgency. People in the area started to gather, drawn by her raised tone and pointed gestures. The boy, confused but calm, stopped his bike and stood there, unsure what to do. He didn't say a word, but his silence only seemed to make her more insistent. Within minutes, a police car pulled up, its presence heightening the tension. The crowd whispered, unsure how this would play out. Then, the sound of heels clicking on the pavement caught everyone's attention. All eyes turned to the woman approaching with a commanding presence. She walked swiftly but deliberately, her head held high and her expression unreadable. The boy's face lit up. It was his mom. But for the woman who called the police, the sight of this composed, confident mother seemed to catch her off guard. The tension in the air was thick, the crowd growing larger as whispers spread. The mother approached her son first, kneeling briefly to ask if he was okay. Her voice was calm but firm, a mix of reassurance and quiet strength. The boy nodded, clutching his bike tightly. Then she stood, turning to face the woman and the police officer. "I'm his mother," she said, her tone steady, but the weight of her words made the crowd go silent. That was when the woman noticed something. The mother wasn't just anyone. Her face was familiar. Then it clicked. She was the governor. The woman's expression shifted instantly, shock, then panic. She hadn't expected this. The crowd, sensing the shift in energy, watched with bated breath. Whispers rippled through the bystanders. "Is that really her? That's the governor." Some took out their phones, recording the moment as it unfolded. The police officer, who had initially looked ready to act, now seemed unsure, his stance relaxing as he glanced between the woman and the governor. The governor locked eyes with the woman, her calm demeanor unshaken. "Why was the police called on my son?" she asked, her voice steady but carrying a tone of authority that demanded an answer. The woman stammered, her earlier confidence nowhere to be found. I thought, he looked suspicious," she managed to say, her voice trembling. The crowd murmured louder now, the tension palpable. The governor took a deep breath, the weight of the moment growing heavier. "Suspicious how?" she asked, leaning in slightly, her words sharp and deliberate. The woman faltered again, unable to provide a clear response. The officer looked at the governor, then at the boy, then back at the woman, unsure of what to do next. Every second felt like an eternity as the scene teetered on the edge of escalation. Before the woman could stammer out another excuse, another car pulled up, sleek and official-looking, with tinted windows. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, their curiosity piqued. The door opened, and out stepped a sharply dressed man who instantly commanded attention. He wasn't just anyone. He was the governor's chief of staff. The tension, already thick, became almost unbearable as the stakes visibly rose. He walked directly to the governor and spoke in a low voice, but the woman could still hear enough to catch phrases like "media already catching wind" and "damage control." Her face drained of color as she realized this wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was turning into a public spectacle that might have consequences far beyond what she imagined. The governor turned back to the officer, her tone calm but firmer now. "Officer, I'd like to know the exact reason my son was deemed a threat serious enough to involve law enforcement. Please explain." The officer opened his mouth, hesitating, clearly caught between protocol and the intense scrutiny of the moment. Before he could answer, a bystander stepped forward, a middle-aged man with a phone still recording. "I saw everything," he said, his voice steady but loud enough for everyone to hear. "That boy wasn't doing anything wrong. She's the only one causing trouble here." The crowd shifted, their collective attention turning to the woman, who now looked completely cornered. But just as the tension seemed at its peak, the woman suddenly blurted out something unexpected, an accusation that shifted the focus once again. "I wasn't the only one who called," she said, her voice rising. The crowd gasped, and the governor froze, her sharp gaze narrowing. If true, this wasn't just about one person, it could be something much bigger. The governor's eyes narrowed as she studied the woman, her words hanging in the air. "Not the only one?" she asked, her voice calm but sharp. The crowd leaned in, waiting. The officer, sensing the gravity of the moment, reached for his radio, likely to confirm the woman's claim. The tension grew heavier as everyone waited for what felt like an eternity. Moments later, the officer's radio crackled, and a response made the crowd gasp. Another caller had reported the boy, an anonymous tip describing him as suspicious and out of place. The governor's face remained steady, but her jaw tightened. "Out of place," she repeated, her voice cutting through the air. Her tone made it clear she wasn't just angry, she was determined. But before she could say more, the man who had spoken earlier raised his hand again. "I saw someone leave just before the cops came," he said. "A guy, watching from his car. He looked like he didn't want to be seen." This revelation sent a ripple through the crowd. The officer straightened, his demeanor shifting as he took note. The governor stepped closer to him, her voice lowering but firm. "I suggest you find that person," she said, "because this doesn't end here." The woman who had called the police looked even more rattled now. Her attempt to deflect attention had only added fuel to the fire. The crowd began murmuring louder, their phones still recording, capturing every moment of her discomfort. Just as it seemed the tension had peaked, the governor turned back to the crowd, her voice clear and commanding. "Let this serve as a reminder," she said, her eyes scanning the faces around her. "We don't tolerate baseless fear, prejudice, or profiling. Not here, not anywhere." The crowd erupted in applause, the weight of the moment sinking in. But as the scene began to settle, a bystander holding a phone whispered, "Wait, I got that guy's license plate earlier." He handed the information to the officer, who immediately called it in. The woman froze, her face pale. It was clear this story wasn't over yet. As the officer took the license plate information, the crowd slowly began to disperse, but the moment lingered. The governor stood by her son, gently resting a hand on his shoulder as she reassured him. "You did nothing wrong," she said softly, her voice carrying the weight of a mother's love and strength. The boy nodded, a small smile breaking through his earlier uncertainty. The woman who had called the police remained silent, avoiding the stares of those around her. It was clear she regretted her actions, but the damage had already been done. The officer, now focused on the lead from the license plate, promised to investigate further, leaving no stone unturned. As they walked away, the governor turned one last time, addressing the remaining onlookers. "We must all do better. Stand up, speak out, and protect one another." Her words lingered, leaving an undeniable impact. The lesson was clear, and so was the hope for change.